Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at some extremely spicy battles in the Open Master League featuring my newly maxed out level 50 shiny Regigigas. Regigigas is a pure normal type Pokemon with the charge moves of Thunder and Focus Blast, and for the fast move I'm running Hidden Power Ground. Since I do have the Ground Hidden Power, I'm going to be using it and hopefully looking to seek and destroy some Steel types in the Master League. Regigigas, definitely a pick for fun, not for climbing, but I had some really fun battles with it. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and check out Regigigas in the Open Master League. Hopping into the first match, picking up a Nightmare lead, double nuke Zacian into Giratina. I farm halfway to a Wild Charge, save switch into Zacian, and my opponent is actually staying in this matchup to throw energy, so they don't have a hard check to a Reshi save switch. They fire off the Shadow Ball, and now they send in a Snarl Zacian. Zacian farming up, so I'm gonna full send the Overheat here. This is the surprise nuke on the team, and it deals massive damage to the Zacian. I will commit the shield. Opponent is firing off a Play Rough here, and my opponent continuing to farm up energy. I make it to the Fusion Flare, and I'm looking to put pressure and either win switch or grab a shield. I'm able to get the shield. At this point, unfortunately, while battling, I had lost count of their energy. I was worried they were at the back-to-back, so I actually let this through. In hindsight, I probably could have stayed in and fought for switch, but I elect to let that go and save the shield for Regigigas in the back. In comes Regigigas. Their final Pokemon is an Excadrill, and this is really good news for me, as the Hidden Power Ground will be hitting for super effective damage. Now, in-game, it shows that it's resistant damage. That's actually a fun Easter egg about Hidden Power, is that anytime you use it, it will always say that it's not very effective. But as you can see from the damage, Hidden Power Ground tearing through the Excadrill. In comes Giratina, and I'm firing off the Thunder. Thunder into the Giratina, will be no shielded. I am double resisting everything they can throw here. Ominous Wind, Shadow Ball, I'm in a great spot. Shadow Ball does absolutely nothing. Regigigas makes it to the Thunder. Thunder is going to be grabbing my opponent's final shield here. I can throw a couple more hidden powers, send in the Zacian, and Zacian now has the Wild Charge loaded. Ominous Wind, not going to cut it, and Zacian gets to this Wild Charge. Wild Charge KOs the Giratina, and that's a good game. Hopping into the next match, picking up a pretty decent lead, Zacian into Heatran. While I can't one-shot with Close Combat deals devastating damage to Heatran in this matchup. So, since they're staying in, I'm just going straight for the Close Combat. Close Combat is going to be shielded by the Heatran. I save switch into Reshiram, and the fact that they're throwing energy cues me into the fact that they're probably running Stone Edge. They fire off the Stone Edge. They're now going to send in Dragonite. And considering that I saw a Heatran on the lead and I have Hidden Power Ground on my Regigigas, you know I am fighting for switch. So I'm going to land the Fusion Flare, shield up the Dragon Claw, and fully commit to the farm down. Because this way, now that I have switch, they're about to get destroyed with double super effective damage from Ground Hidden Power. In comes Togekiss. I was worried I couldn't make it to the Overheat, so I end up settling for the Fusion Flare. Fusion Flare connects. I'm going to send in Zacian. Zacian farming up a ton of energy here. Togekiss farming up as well. They're going to fire off a charge move. No shields remaining for the Zacian. It's the Ancient Power. I'm able to make it to the back-to-back Wild Charges. Wild Charge number 1 thrown at the Togekiss. They let it go. In comes the Heatran, and look at its HP dissolve due to the Ground Hidden Power, and the opponent concedes the match. We see a Dream lead in the next match, Zacian into Hydreigon. Opponent is going to save switch into Lugia, and this is absolutely perfect, as I have some okay counters to Hydreigon in the back, but my backline gets absolutely shredded by Lugia, so I'm more than happy to stay in here. Wild Charge will connect. I'm firing off Wild Charge number 2, and this will be lethal. My opponent is going to commit the shield. They easily have enough for the Aeroblast, but I decide to call a bait. I am 4 times debuffed, but a Sky Attack still will not KO. They're going for Sky Attack number 2, and this one I am going to shield. The nice thing is, even though I'm quad debuffed, the Dragon Tails still do absolutely nothing, so I can farm up to 2 more Wild Charges and put some pressure onto the Lugia. Wild Charge gets shielded. Zacian able to make it to yet another Wild Charge, winning not only switch advantage, but shield advantage as well. In comes Hydreigon. they're going to get the farm down, but I can now send in Reshiram. Reshiram will be hit with a Brutal Swing, but Brutal Swing is not going to KO. Reshiram has some pretty nice bulk to it, able to absorb that damage, make it to the Fusion Flare. That's going to KO, and then it's all up to Regigigas in the back. Fusion Flare connects. It's a level 50 Solgaleo in the back, and Hidden Power Ground is coming in clutch. They're firing off the Psychic Fangs. That's going to connect, lowering my defense. I just need to make it to the Focus Blast here. They're able to outpace and make another charge move, but I've saved this shield for this exact moment. Shielding the Psychic Fangs, and it is Focus Blast time. Solgaleo gets absolutely destroyed, and that's a good game. We see a Core Breaker on the lead in the next match, Zacian into Groudon. Groudon honestly does very well against this entire team, so definitely not a fun Pokemon to encounter. I'm going to no-shield it first, as I am able to tank Precipice Blades. Precipice Blades is going to connect. I'm going to farm up to the back-to-back close combats. My opponent has the energy for the Fire Punch here, and they do win CMP, so I'm going to go for the Fire Punch catch onto Reshiram, but my opponent reads me like a book. They don't throw their energy, and now I'm in trouble. And to add insult to injury, they bait. They make it to the Precipice Blades, and I've had to give up both shields, so I'm in an incredibly terrible spot. In comes Dialga. I'm needing to make it to double Fusion Flare. I'm firing off the first. One Fusion Flare will not KO here. My opponent is going to let that go. I make it to another Fusion Flare, and I'm looking to put some pressure onto my opponent's shields. My opponent is going to commit the shield. I'm expecting they're going to be spamming the Iron Head looking to win CMP over the Zacian, so I send in Regigigas instead. Regigigas absorbs the Iron Head, gets the farm down. The question is, what is that final Pokemon? We have a Regigigas, and we have a move stored on the Zacian, and it's a Giratina origin, and suddenly, I regret taking the Iron Head on the Regigigas. Regigigas, with ground hidden power, should be able to win against Giratina down a shield, but unfortunately, I am down health as well. I switch into the Zacian looking for the CMP sack swap, and we get it! Wait, maybe there's a chance. We get the CMP sack swap on the Shadow Ball, and now the question is, can Regigigas finish the fight? They're going to be firing off double resisted charge moves here. They go for the Shadow Ball. Regigigas able to withstand the damage. Can my opponent make it to the Shadow Ball, or is it the Ominous Wind? It is the Shadow Ball. Regigigas is low. Groudon gets the farm down, and we lose a heartbreaking game. Picking up a decent lead in the next match, Zacian into Ho-Oh. We are running Wild Charge, so this is not a bad matchup by any means. I'm going to farm up 7 quick attacks and fire off the Wild Charge just before their Incinerate finishes. Wild Charge will be no-shielded. I'm farming up and looking for the Sacred Fire catch onto my Reshiram, and we got it. That's huge. My opponent now going to send in Dialga. Dialga looking for the farm down here. I'm not going to make it to the overheat, so I settle for the Fusion Flare. Even Fusion Flare would hurt. We see a shield from the Dialga. Dialga gets the full farm down. Dialga has quite a bit of energy. I send in the Zacian. Dialga tries to go for the CMP tie, as they do win CMP, but I end up going for the extra. I shield up the Iron Head. I'm looking to overfarm and go for the close combat. This will be lethal. Dialga commits the final shield. They are trying to get rid of the Zacian, but I'm not going to let that happen. I'm going to shield as well, and I need to manage my energy extremely carefully in this game. I'm looking to farm, and now I'm very close to a Wild Charge on top of the close combat. Close combat is going to KO. The question is, do we see the Ho-Oh? It's a Lugia instead. In comes the Ho-Oh. I bank a move, and I send in Regigigas. These ground hidden powers are single resisted, and this move is going to hurt. Sacred Fire, massive damage. We get the debuff. Regigigas gets the farm down and leaves with the Thunder loaded. And with that, I think we can win. Thunder rocks the Shadow Lugia. In comes the Zacian with the Wild Charge loaded. Wild Charge KOs the Lugia, and that's a good game. We see a familiar lead in the next match, Zacian into Groudon, and this is not a fun lead to play out of, as Groudon is winning matchups against our entire team. As before, I'm just going to let the Precipice Blades go through and build up to the back-to-back. My opponent baits with a Fire Punch, which is pretty good news for me here, and I'm now at the back-to-back close combats. Close combat number 1 will be no-shielded, and I end up going for the extra quick attack since I know I lose CMP. My opponent is now going to fire off the Precipice Blades. They save switch into Mewtwo. I'm going to bank double charge moves on the Zacian and send in Reshiram. I'm basically just sacrificing the Reshiram here. 2 Side Strikes will KO, and due to the energy lead my opponent has, they are going to be able to outpace. So, bit unfortunate there, but I'm in a really tough spot as it is with that Groudon being here, so I'm doing what I can. I fire off the Wild Charge that will not KO, but we get the perfect farm down. You love to see it. In comes Togekiss, and I should be able to make double Wild Charge here. If I can force the shields, maybe we have a chance. I make it to both Wild Charges, putting a lot of pressure onto my opponent's final shield. Wild Charge will be shielded. I send in the Regigigas. Hidden Power Ground is double resisted here, so this is going to be tough. I'm going to no-shield as my opponent fires off the Ancient Power. I need to make it to the Thunder. I get to the Thunder. This is big. Is this going to be enough to one-shot? Thunder barely does not. In comes the Groudon. Groudon trying to make it to the back-to-back Fire Punches, and I think they have it. I have to hope that they do not. I commit the shield. Do they have the back-to-back? Yes, they do. That's going to be lethal. It all comes down to, can I quick attack farm down this Groudon? In comes the Zacian, and the Zacian gets farmed down. We see a great lead in the next match, Zacian into Dialga. Zacian often has to go down a shield to win this matchup, but the good news is you leave extremely healthy. I'm able to outpace, making it to the close combat before they make the Iron Head. Close combat will be no shielded. I'll go for the Iron Head catch onto the Reshiram, but my opponent shows great patience. My Reshiram save switch will be answered with Mamoswine. I try and CMP tie there. My opponent does end up going for the extra. Fusion Flare will be shielded. I'm going to no shield here. My opponent has the high horsepower to KO. They go for the Avalanche. That's not going to cut it. I'll make the Fusion Flare, and they're forced to fire off another charge move. Avalanche is going to KO, and now I'm going to send in Zacian. Zacian farming up, going for the close combat, and winning the CMP tie against that Mamoswine. Close combat will KO in the back. It's a Giratina, and Regigigas up a shield is about to sweep. In comes the Dialga. They get farmed down, and the opponent concedes the match. Hopping into the next match, we see Mamoswine, but it's now on the lead. This is a bit of a tricky matchup as Mamoswines love catching close combats from Zacian onto flying types. So I'm going to let the first one go, and then I'm going to wait a turn and go for the close combat. But my opponent waits a turn as well, and they still catch the close combat onto Lugia. That is really rough for me. I'm farming up to the back-to-back, but my opponent actually got a Dragon Tail through as they caught, which is something that I did not notice. So not only did I waste a close combat on a Psychic and Flying type, but I'm forced to go down a shield early. I fire off the Wild Charge. I'm going to bank energy for later and send in the Reshiram. Reshiram is going to look to tank the move and commit to the farm down here, but I am in an incredibly rough spot because of that beautiful catch by my opponent. I'm able to get the full farm down with the Reshiram. I leave with a lot of energy. But the question is, what are they sending in? They're sending in Dialga, and I'm just not healthy enough to make it to the double Fusion Flare. Fusion Flare will be no-shielded. I do not get the second move. And at this point, unfortunately, this is looking like it's game over. I send in the Regigigas. They're going to farm up energy, bring back in the Mamoswine, and I'm going for the Thunder on the CMP die. This is double resisted, but my opponent, not familiar with the moveset, they shield anyway. I have to hope that somehow I can make double moves on the Zacian. In comes the Zacian. I get farmed down, and I concede the match. Hopping into the final match, leading Zacian into Ho-Oh. We've seen this lead before. This is a pretty decent matchup for us. Again, I'm going to throw 7 quick attacks and fire off the Wild Charge just as their third Incinerate is finishing. Wild Charge will be shielded. I throw 2 more. Look to catch the Sacred Fire, but my opponent shows incredible patience, hanging on to their energy, and they're now going to fire off the Brave Bird. Brave Bird connects. In comes Dialga. Dialga farms down. The Dragon Breath KOs, denying the Fusion Flare. Everything going from bad to worse in this game. They are firing off the Iron Head. I'm going to be shielding up with my Zacian. Zacian farming up quite a lot of energy here, going for the close combat. I did go a bit over 100 energy there. I just wanted to leave with as much energy as I possibly could. My opponent can send back in the Ho-Oh, but Ho-Oh is not going to appreciate the Wild Charge. So I'm going for the Wild Charge here. My defense is in absolute shambles. I'm able to get the shield. I'm able to withstand the damage, but I end up one turn short of the Wild Charge. I'm going to shield. They go for the Brave Bird. In the back, it's their own Zacian. And now we have Zacian versus Regigigas. Regigigas needing to make it to the Thunder. Zacian fires off the close combat. Regigigas able to survive, but my opponent will not let me reach the Thunder. They're now going to be quad debuffed on defense. I need the perfect overfarm. I'm farming up here. I make it to the back-to-back Wild Charges. They're quad debuffed. This Wild Charge will KO. In comes the Ho-Oh. I throw one quick attack, and the Wild Charge. This has to KO. Wild Charge KOs the Ho-Oh, and against all odds, we secure the win. All in all, I had an absolute blast running Regigigas. As I mentioned at the start, Regigigas is absolutely not a Pokemon that I would recommend investing in if you're looking to climb the rank. The fact that it's stuck with hidden power is going to dramatically limit it in terms of just about every matchup. If it ever got a good fast move in the game, this thing would be an absolute menace, but for the time being, it remains a really fun meme pick that can absolutely bully Giratina Origin. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is absolutely incredible. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.